So something else you'll notice is that sometimes there's two videos on the same day, okay? So I went ahead and separated what we talked about before the break and after, okay? I also will do that if we're gonna go from chapter to chapter. I'll make sure I stop and then go on to the next chapter, okay? So that way you don't have to sift through a 2-hour and 45-minute video to get to the right point. It'll be just on the chapters or the topics that we talked about, okay? So kind of just, we're gonna go into chapter 1 and 2 next class, okay? So make sure you watch those videos before, but I just kind of want to get some basic initial impressions. If you have taken HAMG 1313, we did talk about revenue management right at the end of the semester, okay? I think it was like chapter 14 or 15 or something. So it's towards the end. If it's been a while, that's okay. We're going to refresh your memory. So who can remember, who thinks they remember what revenue management is all about? Tamara, what do you think? It is part, sales is part of it. Yes, we work with the sales office with revenue management. Good. Yes. Okay, so with revenue management, we definitely look for occupancy. Okay, we are definitely looking to see what potential revenue we have lost by not selling the rooms. Okay, what else? So it does help us a little bit with our, we do take into consideration our operating costs, but not so much. A little bit, but not so much. What else? Anybody? So we use our revenue management to project the sales, to project how much labor we're going to need, right? With the budgeting process, the revenue manager is definitely involved with that budgeting process. Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Pricing the rooms and the times that we're using that. Okay. So revenue management, simply put, is we need to sell, the right room on the right day to the right guest for the right price. Okay. We need to sell the right room to the right day on the right day to the right guest for the right price. Okay. So revenue management is basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize the revenue that's coming in. Okay. We use the concept of supply and demand. Okay. When our supply is really high, which means we have a lot of vacant rooms in our hotel, okay, and there's not a strong demand, we're going to sell our rooms at a discounted price. Okay. If our supply is very small and there's a high demand for our rooms, we're going to sell them at a premium price. Okay. Let me give you an example. My best friend was graduating from Harvard back in 2015. Yeah, 2015. And they only do one commencement ceremony in the spring, in May. Okay. So 14,000 people are graduating from the university on that day. So you can imagine all the hotels in the whole area are just full up, right? So she was visiting, she lives in Scotland. She was visiting with her mom, and one of their family friends was also visiting from DC. And her former friend was their travel agent because there was a former because she messed up royally. And she forgot to book a room at the hotel for their guest that was traveling from DC. So when he went to check in, there was no reservation. There was one room left at this Holiday Inn in Cambridge. And want to guess how much it went for? Not quite that high. About $700 to $750 for one night. It was the last room. So they can command that rate because it's the last room, okay? At a very high demand. And so what ended up happening was they had a king size bed in the room that she and her mom shared. He slept on the sofa sleeper, and I slept on the cushions of the couch that on the floor. So there was 4 of us in a king room. Not ideal, but we made it work. Okay. But we want to forecast. Revenue management is forecasting. Okay. Once our occupancy gets so high, we're going to change our rate, or the right day. If there's something happening, the rodeo's coming up in February, March is spring break, fiestas in April. Okay. So during those times, we have to know what's going on in our city. Okay. Revenue management also works with the sales office. And we're going to talk about that in chapter 7 specifically, to be able to tell us what can we sell our rooms for. Groups often want a discounted price. Okay. And we can give them a discounted price up to a certain point. Why? Why can we give, like, let's say our room rate is $200 and a group is asking for a rate of $150 a night. Why would we be able to offer that $50 discount per night to a group? Not necessarily for the other rooms. We wouldn't necessarily do that because our rate is still going to be that 200, right? But there's a reason why a group is able to have a discounted room rate, because what else are they going to do? Spend more money on food and rental of the spaces, right? And so we're going to talk about if your food, okay, yeah, that's great. You are more than welcome to come to our hotel, and we're going to discount your rate for $150, but you need to guarantee $20,000 in food and beverage. And if you don't guarantee $20,000 in food and beverage, then we're going to charge you rental for our ballroom space. But if you get that $20,000 food and beverage, the cost of that rental is built into that, right? And that's 20,000 plus. Okay. If you ever see on a price list 20,000 plus, I don't know why words pop it up. Okay. 20,000 plus. What does that plus mean? Plus what? It could be more. It definitely is going to be more because it's plus tax and gratuity. Okay, so gratuity is built into that. And hotels right now are anywhere between 20 to 26% gratuity. Right, exactly. Okay, so 20 to 26%, that's gratuity. Our sales tax is 8.25%. Okay, so let's just use 20 as our example. This is also important for you who are going to think about being event planners, right? Because your event planner, you calling the hotel and the hotel saying your food and beverage is 20,000. You can't go in there with a $20,000 budget. You have to go in there with, let's say, so 20,000 times 1.2825. Okay, your budget is $25,650 because you have to spend 20,000, but that includes the plus. So if you as an event planner or an event manager or a meeting planner go in thinking, oh, my budget's 20,000, no. At the end of the day, you're going to be $5,650 short. Okay, and that's what you pay. So if you have a client and your client, let's say your markup is 20%, okay, you're going to charge your client times 1.2. You're going to charge your client $30,000, 780. So the hotel has $20,000 food and beverage requirement. Okay, you're going to pay that plus, unless of course you're tax exempt. If you're working for a tax exempt organization like education, military, you can wipe out that 8% fee. Okay. They do have to show that, absolutely. But you're gonna, when you actually charge your client, you're gonna charge your client 30,780. Okay. What was it, like 25,800 something, right? So let's just use that. If we did 20,000 times 1.2, if I already added my 20%, right? I added my 20% on top of that 20,000, I'm already out $1,500 short from what my client is going to pay. So if you don't understand as a professional, plus, and I say this because I used to work for, I'm on the board of directors for a statewide association. It's called the Hospitality Educators Association of Texas. Okay, it's the Hospitality Association for all teachers that teach high school culinary or hospitality. We had an event manager. I got on the board of directors and we had an event manager. The first time she was just like, oh, there's this thing called attrition, which we'll talk about attrition. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know about attrition? You are our planner. Like, how do you not know this? And then like 2 months or 2 years later, we're planning another conference and she says, our budget is 20,000 for food. And I said, no. Our budget is 26,000 for food because we have plus the gratuity. And she didn't listen to me. And then later on, when the conference bill came up, she was like, oh my gosh, it's $6,000 more than we thought it was going to be. I was like, what are you talking about? How are you our manager and how are you budgeting, right? By the way, she's no longer a manager because she couldn't manage the budget. Okay, well, I didn't because there's no way I could do that. But so I go on that huge long tangent. I apologize. Revenue management from the hotel's perspective is we're going to charge the right room. We're going to sell the right room on the right day to the right person for the right price. So every room in our hotel could have a different rate. Okay, we could have different rates for, we'll talk about different rates throughout the semester as we go forward, okay? So, yeah. You absolutely can, but that just means you're gonna make more money. So their bar, what they spend at the bar is not part of that 20,000. Like if we have a bar in the lobby, we're also gonna get money from people buying that. This 20,000 is what that group spends and banquets or snack breaks or breakfasts or whatever meal service. Bless you. Okay. So that 20,000 is what the group itself is spending. Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna get more. Unless, of course, we're hosting a citywide for Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, at that point, where our bar tabs are probably not going to be that high, or they shouldn't be that high. Okay, or other like religious groups as well. They don't really drink a lot, so. All right. So now everyone should have a piece of paper in front of them. And let me open it up so we can see. Oh, that's right. It's on the Excel. There we go. Okay. So everyone has a piece of paper in front of them. Okay. I am going to read off a variety of reservations. So pretend you are the revenue manager of this hotel. We have 5 rooms in our hotel. Okay. 101 through 105. So we have 5 rooms in our hotel. I'm going to read off some reservations. Okay. The rates are right below the table. So if I were to say, let's say AAA checking in on Monday for 3 nights, okay? If you want to take that reservation, then you would say Monday, 115, Tuesday, 115, Wednesday, 115, okay? I'm going to say checking in on Monday for 3 nights, okay? If you don't want that reservation, you can bypass it, okay? You could decline it and you can wait for another reservation, okay? So if I say something like the corporate rate of $85, checking in on Wednesday for 1 night, Okay, you may decide you want it, you may decide you don't want it. Okay. So what we're going to do is at the end of all the reservations that have been read, you're going to total up and see what your total revenue is for this week. Okay. You cannot move a guest. Okay. So what that means is, let's say you took that 115 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I say a corporate rate for 2 nights on Sunday, and you go Sunday, oh, we don't have room on this Monday. Now, if you have a different room that has Sunday and Monday free, you can put them in that room, but you can't put like Sunday and then put the other one on Monday here. Okay, you can't move guests from one room to another during their reservation. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so I'm going to read it off. I will repeat each one 3 times. Okay, I'll repeat each one 3 times, and you can decide whether you want it or not. If you want it, you can just write the dollar amount in the box for that specific time. So the first one is a corporate rate of $85, checking in Sunday for 4 nights. Checking in Sunday for 4 nights. So if you were to take this, you would write 85, 1, 2, 3 for 4 nights. This is what yours would look like, okay? If you would want to take it. You don't have to, it's up to you. You're the revenue manager, okay? So the first one again is corporate rate of $85, check in on Sunday for 4 nights. Third time, corporate rate for $85, check in on Sunday for 4 nights. Number 2, the rack rate, checking in Tuesday for 1 night. The rack rate of $250, checking in on Tuesday for 1 night. Okay. The rack rate of $250, checking in Tuesday for 1 night. The third one, the government rate, checking in Monday for 3 nights. So the 105 government rate, checking in Monday for 3 nights. The 105 government rate, checking in Monday for 3 nights. Number 4, the event rate, $245, event rate, checking in Thursday for 3 nights. The event rate, $245, checking in Thursday for 3 nights. The $245 event rate, checking in Thursday for 2 nights. Or sorry, 3 nights. I'm sorry, 3 nights. Number 5, the 115 AAA rate. So 115 AAA rate, check in Wednesday for 3 nights. The AAA rate, checking in Wednesday for 3 nights. The AAA rate, checking in Wednesday for 3 nights. All right, number 5, the $85 corporate rate. Sorry, number 6. The $85 corporate rate, checking in Tuesday for 5 nights. The $85 corporate rate, checking in Tuesday for 5 nights. The $85 corporate rate, checking in Tuesday for 5 nights. Number 7, the government rate, 105, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. So the only way you can use this one is if you have a room that has no reservations yet. Okay, so the government rate, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. Number 7, the government rate, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. Number 8, the corporate rate, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. The corporate rate, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. the corporate rate checking in Sunday for 7 nights. Number 9, the event rate checking in Wednesday for 4 nights. The event rate checking in Wednesday for 4 nights. The event rate checking in Wednesday for 4 nights. Number 10, the corporate rate check-in Sunday for 3 nights. The corporate rate checking in Sunday for 3 nights. Number 11, the corporate rate check-in Friday for 2 nights. The corporate rate checking in Friday for 2 nights. Corporate rate checking in Friday for 2 nights. Number 12, the rack rate, $250, checking in Sunday for 7 nights. The rack rate checking in Sunday for 7 nights. The rack rate checking in Sunday for 7 nights. Number 13, the event rate checking in Friday for 2 nights. The event rate checking in Friday for 2 nights. The event rate checking in Friday for 2 nights. And that's all our reservations. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is go ahead and add up your total for each room. Okay, if it's blank, just count that as 0. Okay, so add up your total for each room and put it in the daily total bottom, the one at the very bottom. Okay, you can use your calculators. Yeah, the total for each room by day. You can do by day. Yep, just go straight to the column. All right, so everyone stand up. Everyone stand up. All right, so if your total revenue, okay, all your days added together, if your total revenue is more than $3,000, stay standing. If it's less than $3,000, have a seat. Okay, cool. What was yours? Just out of curiosity. No, Tamara. Okay. Okay, so close. Miriam? Okay, that's okay. Cool. If your total is more than 3,500, stay standing. If it's less than 35, have a seat. Okay. If it's more than 4,000, sorry, if it's less than 4,000, have a seat. Less than 4,000, have a seat. Okay. Less than 4,500. Okay. Less than 5,000. It's less than 5,000. Less than 5,300. More than 5,300? What was your total? 5,460. You had the same as mine, 5,365? Awesome. Okay. Both of y'all, before you leave class, you can go in the closet. There's a whole shelf of stuff. You can grab a prize. Okay. There's a prize shelf in the closet. Excellent. Good job. Okay. So now this is what I thought was the most perfect situation. Apparently it wasn't because you got higher than me. But this is essentially $5,365 is if we were to take the right guest on the right day for the right price. How many of you, when you got to this government rate, the corporate rate of whole week, how many of you did not take that or were not able to take it because you'd already booked up all your other rooms? Okay. You already had Sunday, Monday booked. Okay. What about this rack rate of $250 for the whole week? Okay. Now, we can't always, it's easy for me because I have all the reservations. Okay. So it's easy for me, but revenue management is kind of like a little bit of a game. Okay. But you're using past data to predict the future. What is the term that we use for using past data to predict the future? Forecasting. Okay. So we use forecasting in order to use the past data to predict the future. Okay. If this particular week, we know that there's an event happening on Thursday or Friday. Okay. There are different tactics that we can do for revenue management to make sure that we don't sell one corporate rate of $85 on a Thursday. And then because of that, I can't take somebody who wants to come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. See how that works? So there are different tactics we're going to talk about that we can do in revenue management to control how our reservations come in. I'll probably repeat this story again, but I apologize in advance. But when I was a front desk agent at the La Quinta, this was in 2009. Okay. I really didn't know much about Fiesta. I grew up here. The only time we ever went to Fiesta is when I had a sibling that was marching in the band for the Battle of Flowers Parade. But that was all I did for Fiesta growing up. So I didn't really know how big Fiesta really was. All I knew that HEB had an $85 corporate rate because we were right across the street from the HEB corporate office downtown, right by the HEB on Cesar Chavez. And so I'm a front desk agent and I get a phone call for a weekend in April and they want the HEB corporate rate. Excellent. Sounds great. I'll go ahead and put that in for you. You're all set. $85 for the weekend, Friday and Saturday. Okay. Not even 5 minutes later, somebody else calls. I want the HEB rate for these dates. I'm like, okay, sounds great. I don't know anything about Fiesta. Not even 5 minutes later, somebody else calls. So I've had like 3 or 4 calls in a row in less than a 30-minute period asking for the HEB rate. Now, the beautiful thing about HEB that they negotiated with our hotel is that anybody with HEB could get the corporate rate. They could be the person that's just stocking shelves in the local grocery store. All they had to do was show their name badge and their most recent pay stub, and they would get that $85 rate. Okay. Now, after about the 5th or 6th reservation that comes through, I'm like, wait a minute. Our rate is $209 that day. So why are we selling rooms for $85 if our rate is 209? So I asked our salesperson, I was like, I'm really confused. I've had 6 people call me in the last 30 minutes asking for these dates, and I'm giving them the $85 rate, and it says 209. Why are we doing this? And her face dropped. She was like, what? She forgot to go into the system and close out that discounted corporate rate of $85. Okay. So then not less than 5 minutes later, somebody else calls me and says, I would like the HEB rate for these dates. Unfortunately, that rate is no longer available. But my friends just called and they got it. I said, yes, your friends were perfect timing. I was like, unfortunately, because of our occupancy in the hotel, we no longer are offering that rate. It's reached a certain point in our occupancy where we're closing out our discounted rates. Well, that's not fair. They got it. And I said, sir, I didn't say this to them, but in my mind, there's a lot of things we say in our mind that we never say to the guest. Okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, why don't you just pay the $200? Because I know you're going to bring 10 people in. So charge them each $20 and you're going to get your $200 paid for. You're going to cram them in that room and you're going to ask for extra towels. And I'm glad I'm not going to be there that weekend because it's going to be crazy. Right. But that's when I realized, that's when I learned that lesson of sometimes we close rates out. Okay. Unless the contract is negotiated that there are no blackout dates. If the contract that they negotiate with the sales team says we're going to honor you this $85 rate and there are no blackout dates, well, then they can use it anytime they want to. Okay. So that's why it's really important. If you take a look though, we have what we're going to talk about in future classes. We're going to have what we call, just do it from my computer because it's easier. KPIs. And a KPI is a key performance indicator. Key performance indicator is a KPI. We're going to go into more detail. We went over this in the very brief introduction in HAMG 1313. We're going to go into this a lot more detail with our KPIs, but we look for 3 different KPIs when we're talking about revenue management and in our hotels in general. One of them is occupancy. How full is our hotel? How occupied is our hotel? Okay. You'll notice this first day, I only sold 4 rooms. There's an empty room up here. So that means my occupancy is only 80%. I'm not full. I have 4 out of my 5 rooms sold. Okay. Because I have 5 rooms sold, I have 100% occupancy. Our goal is to get to 100% occupancy. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but our product, which is hotel rooms, our product is perishable. Okay. What do you think about when you hear the word perishable? What's that? So changing. Okay, possibly. What else? Yes, Katerina. If you don't use it, you lose it. It expires, right? We think about perishable when we think about food. How many of y'all are like me and I think I'm going to go on this whole health kick and I buy all these fresh vegetables and then they just perish in my refrigerator? Okay. They're perishable. If I don't use them, then I'm going to lose them. Same thing with our hotel rooms. If I don't have a head in bed, I can't sell today's room tomorrow. Once midnight happens and I close my books, I can't be like, oh, let me just add this room back to I have 1,003 rooms today. No, I can't just add that room. Okay. So I can't sell today's room tomorrow. And so my product, my hotel room will perish. Our goal is 100% occupancy. Okay. We are also going to be looking at our average daily rate, ADR. Okay. So if you look up here, let's look at what is the day that has our highest average daily rate? The highest average daily rate up here on the screen is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We take our average. How do you find the average of anything? Add them all up and then divide by the number we have, right? So $930 divided by 5 rooms comes out to $186. Okay. I have different rates on different rooms. Okay. 245, 105, 85, 245, 250. So my average of those is $186. Okay. So we'll talk about ADR. The last one, let me write it on a whiteboard. Is revenue per available room. So revenue per available room. Revenue per available room. If we're at 100% occupancy, it's the same number as ADR. Okay. If we're not at 100% occupancy, then our revenue per available room is always going to be less than our average daily rate. The RevPAR will always be less. Okay. And I'll show you why. I have 5 available rooms on this day, correct? On Sunday. Okay. My average daily rate is 105. If I take that same 105 and divide it by 5 nights, I guess I can't do that in a header. Just kidding. 105 divided by 5 nights. No, just kidding. Sorry. $525 is my revenue. So I take that same $525, divide it by 5 nights. This should be divided by 4. So what happens when I go off script? Okay, so my ADR, my average daily rate is $131.25. My revenue per available room is only 105 per night. Okay, per room. It's less because I didn't sell out. I didn't have 100% occupancy. So our RevPAR is a great tool. This hotel has 5 rooms. But if I compare myself to a hotel that has 10 rooms, right? Obviously, they're going to make more money than me because they have 5 more rooms to sell. But if they don't fill all 10 of their rooms every night, then we can look at our revenue per available room to give us an equal comparison. So that allows us, that revenue per available room allows us to be able to compare ourselves to hotels that have different numbers of rooms that are still within our same competitor set. Okay. Okay. You added up the room. And you still add up to 50 rooms when you divide it? So it depends. If you're looking for your average daily rate, you're not going to use them because you only sold 3 rooms, right? That's the average. We take their total revenue, 460, divided by 3 rooms. Okay. So that average daily rate is going to change. But to get our revenue per available room, we can take our total revenue and divide by 5. And that gives us $92 versus the 153. Okay. This revenue per available room tells us how efficiently, how effectively we are selling and filling our hotel, right? That tells us $92. Yes, our average daily rate is 153. But in reality, when we think about the revenue that's coming in based on the rooms that we sold or didn't sell, we actually only averaged $92 per room based on the rooms that we did not sell. okay? So revenue per available room is more of an accurate indication of how our operations are going, okay? So those 3 KPIs, ADR, revenue per available room, and occupancy. Don't worry, we're gonna do more examples on Tuesday next week. We're gonna go into it. This is just a high level overview, okay? But again, we wanna think about, I wanted this rack rate of $250 for every night of the week. That totals to rack rate for 7 nights, $1,750, right? That's $1,750. So that tells us what we can do to try to help us maximize the revenue that's coming in, okay? Let me give you another example really quickly before we go. I used to run the rock and roll marathons, okay? And I wanted to stay at the Hilton Palacio del Rio. It's downtown. It's right by the starting line. So I thought, this is great. I live here, so I'm going to check in on Saturday night. And then I can go in on Sunday, run the race, and check out and go home. And so I called and I said, okay, it's going to be $350 a night. But we have a 2-night minimum. So you either have to stay Friday and Saturday night, and you can check out on Sunday, or you have to stay Saturday night, and you have to stay Sunday night, and you check out on Monday. Doesn't matter which 2 nights you stay, you have to stay either Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, okay? I was like, I'm not about to spend my rent on a hotel room, my 1 month's rent on a hotel room for 2 nights, okay? So I ended up not doing that, but I didn't understand why. Well, the reason why they did that, because that's $700 worth of revenue, right? And so if I'm a local and I come in just on Saturday, and then I'm going to give them $350 for my night, well, what happens if an out-of-town person comes in and I take their last Saturday night, but they have Friday and Sunday open? That out-of-town person can't make a reservation because Friday night is already full. So that's why they do a 2-night minimum. So I'm going to get my $700 from you either way, whether you stay Friday and Saturday or you stay Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to get my $700 from you either way. Okay? Yeah. Because you want to maximize that revenue. Yes. Occupancy. Yep. So occupancy rate, that's our percentage about how full our hotel is. And we can look at any of those KPIs on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. Okay. So we're going to forecast, and we're going to do a lot of that kind of stuff. We're going to do some math in here. Okay. We're going to do some math. I love math. Okay. But I teach math step by step by step. Okay. That's how I learn best for math. That's how I teach it. I don't just tell you, here's the answer, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to show you step by step of what you have to do. Okay. And that way, if you have the notes and you have the video to go back and watch it, then you can absolutely get those steps by steps. I had an algebra professor. I went to Northeast Lakeview in 2012, I think it was. It had been 14 years since I'd been in an algebra class. And so she was up on the board, and she had like this whole thing where we were talking about functions, right? I'm not going to bore you with that because I actually don't even know about functions anymore. But she had this like thing where she would be up there, and she was from the Middle East, so she had a pretty thick accent, right? And she was like, and ta-da, and ta-da, and ta-da, and ta-da, and here's the answer. And she turns around and she was like, what does ta-da mean? And we all looked at her, we're like, ta-da means poof, magically it appears. There's nothing ta-da about that. Okay? So if I ever get to a point, I may not say ta-da, 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 but if I ever get to a point where I'm just like moving through something really quickly and you're like, hold on, Miss Uminsky, that's a ta-da moment. Let's pump the brakes and let's go back and work this again, okay? Never be afraid to say, I need you to work that again for me. Or let's do a different example. Let's do some different numbers, okay? We have 2 hours and 45 minutes together every Tuesday, except for in February when I'll be out of town, Okay, so don't ever be afraid to ask me, Mr. Minsky, can you repeat that? Can we do different numbers? Or I don't understand. Okay, because if you don't understand, chances are there's somebody else in the room that also doesn't understand, and maybe they're afraid to ask the question. I learned a really good lesson from one of my coworkers, Tim, when I taught 5th grade outdoor ed. He would ask what I thought were the dumbest questions. Okay, I was like, Tim, you should know the answer to that. And so finally, one day I asked him, I was like, why do you ask those questions? Like, you obviously know the answer. Why are you asking the questions? And he said, I asked the question, even though I know the answer, I asked the question because I'm sure there's somebody in the room who's embarrassed to admit that they don't know the answer and they don't want to ask the question. So I'll ask it for them. And then and then that way they still get the information. But I want you all to know, please never be embarrassed to ask a question in this class. That's how we're going to learn. I'd rather you learn the lesson here when we're playing with fun and fake numbers than when you are expected to know these numbers out in the industry on your job. Okay. So I'm going to ask one. I'm going to put someone on the spot real quick. I apologize, Maria. With your Airbnb, do you change your rate or does it stay the same most of the time? Oh, they have a little catalog of a little like calculator for smart pricing. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, that's awesome. That's a perfect example. I think that's like the last chapter of our textbook is automated, automative, use not necessarily AI. They don't call it AI, but it's basically using AI to set your rate, right? And so what that probably does with the Airbnb, it takes into consideration all the Airbnbs in that area, and then it will automatically update as the occupancy is decreasing or as the supply is decreasing, the demand's increasing, it's going to automatically change that. Okay. In hotels, we have access to that. Okay. Yeah. So that's our property management system that will automatically do that. But ultimately, it's important, especially now after taking this class, you'll be able to manually do that, right? You can override. There still needs to be somebody because that computer system is looking at necessarily what happened in the past. Is Fiesta always the same days? No. And so that revenue management system might be looking at last year and Fiesta was a week earlier. And so it may be pricing your rooms outrageously during a time when Fiesta is not even happening. And then when it actually is happening, it's probably at a lower rate, right? And so as a person, we still need that human to analyze. I think that I'll close with this. I think that if I got my degree in 2009, and revenue management was not a career in 2009, which is hard to believe, but that's what, let's see if I can do some math real quick. 2023, 13, 14 years ago, right? Only in the last teenage years ago did we really develop revenue management. And not only that, but revenue management, to be an effective revenue manager, you have to be able to analyze data. Okay. It's not necessarily about doing math. It's more about how do you analyze the data that you have to make sure that you're selling the right room to the right guest for the right price on the right day. And that's the end of our class. All right. Thank you all so much. I'll get these videos posted. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.